Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 497, recorded live on Saturday, November 25th. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have returning Evilbeeker.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been great to have you for this series, which we're sort of finishing. We'll talk about that. This week's screenshot, Grandarin keeps an eye out for mimics in the 343rd screenshot of the week. If you get a mimic there, you're in trouble.
Yeah, there's 5 of them there.
Well, it's not just that. The mimic's going to slow you down, and you're going to end up fighting a dragon that you may or may not have wanted to fight. Well, only one, because you will have killed the first one before you can really get to those, right? So
yeah, that's a great quest.
It is. It's a lot of fun. And it can be a really good one when you're doing double remnant weekends, or where there's a double the remnant chance.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of orange names in there. They're not too bad to kill, so I had like 5 or 6 remnant chests in one little spot. Maybe like not this time, the last one, but the one before that where they had the double remnant chance. A lot of fun. And who doesn't like killing kobolds?
Yeah, there's something about that.
Especially when they're not accompanied by oozes. That's a lot better. We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can watch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, or iTunes, or from our website at DDOCast.com. DDOCast is hosted by CyberEars, the awesome podcast hosting network, and shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will probably be next weekend. You can stay updated by following us on our social media pages or our website, DDOCast.com, with our calendar. You're not going to want to miss next week. I'm not going to spoil what the surprise is, but you're not going to want to miss it. But this week, there is no news other than sales. Haha! Lots of really nice sales for the Black Friday, Cyber Monday thing. So we'll talk about those. Our discussion, though, is we're sort of finishing this series. Sort of. We're kind of finishing the first phase, I guess you could say. So we've been talking about leveling, and we're going to be talking about levels 19 to 20, which will actually get us kind of into phase 2, sort of. So we're going to finish heroics. We'll kind of start talking about epics. I wasn't going to, but level 20 is a weird level, and I want to talk about that, at least in terms of the quest levels. And it was just kind of a good, but there's almost not enough quests to talk about with just 19, so if you were on level 20, it would kind of help a little bit anyways. And then there's a couple of other parts of it what we'll kind of be talking about. But we'll finish up heroics today in terms of our leveling series, which will be fun. So level 19, which we should kind of start by talking about, because we've got up to level 18 last week. These are probably quests that are not going to be run as much. Just from the standpoint that most people don't take level 19. They actually will hold 18 until they hit 20 and then just skip 19 and go right to 20. The reason they do that is because it opens up more quests in terms of a bravery streak and Reaper XP and that kind of stuff. It's not to say that they don't do these, but it's probably more often that they don't. And you can't run them on Reaper if you're level 20. So if you can't run a heroic quest on Reaper if anyone in the party, or if you're level 20. So that kind of makes it a little more difficult to do those because you're doing quests under level or at level in case of 19. Or if you're holding 18, you're under level. And you start getting into some weird logistics problems there. I would also say that some of these quests are probably a little bit more difficult than the normative in that, particularly when we start talking about boss fights. So, having said that, anything else you want to say about just kind of that logistics-y part?
Yeah, and that is kind of the new tactic, right? To bank level 19, especially since Reaper came around. We don't do it as much, but I see the advantage of it, especially if you're trying to push past 20. So if you want to really take advantage of the gaining of epic XP, it's a great tactic to do. But one of the things that I noticed when I was looking at these quests for level 19 was if you push yourself over into the Forgotten Realms early, okay, to do like 15, 16, we've had this happen to us where we spend all of our time over there. Then we come back and then there's some quests back in Eberron that, well, then we just skip them, and that's what we tend to do with some of these quests here. Not to say that they aren't great quests, because I've run 99% of these quests. But when the Forgotten Realms came out, that was a big thing. So we loved going over there. We loved doing those quests. And the Shadowfell came out, and we did the quests in the Stormhorns, which are awesome. And those became kind of our path of quests. But that doesn't mean that there isn't great quests, still back in Eberron at that level.
Yeah, I generally find myself at the level 17, 18 range. It's like I will run anything that will get me to 20. Get me to 20. And in order to kind of keep more options, because if you're at level 18, you can run anything from 16 to heroic 20, although we'll talk about heroic 20 and why that probably won't happen. But
right.
So you've got a large level range there that you can run that will get you that bravery streak bonus, which gives you that extra XP. So there's kind of some advantages there. Level 19, unlike some of the levels we've been talking about, there's really only one series in here that is epic, that you can run in epic, and that's the Stormhorns.
Right.
Which are fun quests. I tend to leave epic quests for epic when I can. And these ones just kind of stand out as being left for epic quests, mostly from the standpoint that it's only recently that I've really seen people running them. Anyways, so it's kind of one of those things that people tended not to be a popular level 19 quests, and people leave them for later. Anyways, they're a little bit long. Some of them are a little bit longer.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, they have some tough boss fights. The one that kind of sticks out a little bit in my mind is Line of Supplies got a pretty tough fight, and then What Goes Up. Those are, and then what's the other one I'm thinking of that's Breaking the Ranks?
Yeah, these quests are all a little bit more challenging. They're kind of a newer. I think this is where you really, this is from an expansion pack, the Shadowfall expansion pack. But I think this is where you kind of start noticing there's a little bit of a paradigm shift when these quests are coming out, and that the quests are maybe a little bit harder than you're used to. And that has a lot to do with when they came out relative to when balance passes were happening and where they got characters where they kind of want them to be. Mm-hmm. Also, there just tends to be more things to fight. Which I think is really where a lot of the challenge comes from. A lot of these quests tend to have more monsters in them.
That's where the mob mentality kind of started to take off a little bit, I think.
Which you can go back and forth on with it, but I do like these quests have some of them are pretty basic, but there's nothing really crazy about Tracker's Trap. There's a couple different directions you can go, but otherwise it's a pretty linear, straightforward quest.
It's got a mimic in it. Gotta like that.
It does. It's got a druid in it. It's got some stuff in it.
Yeah. It's got an interesting end fight too. Where you gotta.
It sort of has an interesting end fight. It's there's nothing really, I think, overly special about it. Yeah, right. The concept of going and breaking something else instead of fighting the end boss for a minute is not exactly a new thing, but it does kind of break out the fight a little bit. You gotta watch out for the mobs that are more than anything else, I find. And we're talking about difficulty. The thing that will kind of start standing out on these quests are the Shredder Kai and their chain whips. Those will catch you pretty quick.
Those are kind of brutal, and the pit traps too. We would always take bets on who would fall victim first.
Lines and Supply is flat out a fun quest. I kind of wish we had more. It's a very unique quest.
It's a tactical quest.
Yeah,
and it has a ton of optionals in it, and things that you can do that will help you to survive the end and get the most out of your XP. There's a conquest and a vandal bonus that really can jack the XP on that quest really high.
Well, I just love how the quest plays because it's sort of a defense game or defense mechanism or strategy, but it's you're stopping a supply run, so you have to kill mobs before they race to the end of the canyon. And it's just kind of a fun different quest.
Well, it's kind of like a storyline quest. So a lot, some of these quests in the game, they're all part of a storyline, but some of them more than others. Where especially like this one. Okay, here you have this job to do that, and I believe that's Harper Favor. Yep. To stop the supplies from getting through. That's typical D&D, right? You've seen a lot of that with the Attack on Stormreach quests, and now you're seeing it again here.
And there's they could give some net traps to play with, and they do a good job with it too, because there's a variety of mobs that first you've got a generic mob of the supply runners, and then you get the really fast ones, and then you get big beefy ones, so you get a little bit of different variety in there. And plus it is like, if you pay attention to the optionals, it gets a little bit more fun too, because it's things like they will stop this supply chain and they will fear your name or something like that, right? They get a little flavor in there. Breaking the ranks is a little bit more of a challenging. It's kind of that defense, more of the true defense or assault. Right. We kind of usually call it more of an assault style, where you're in one little area and the mobs just keep coming. Although it can get a little challenging.
A little bit, yeah. If you don't have if you don't have at least one good tank, and it's a very difficult quest to do. I mean,
crowd control.
Yeah, I mean, Autosphere, it really helps in this quest. I mean, it can basically stop the guys in their tracks. But again, it's one of these things where it's part of the storyline quest, where here you have this enemy encampment that you're supposed to take out, and then, oh, by the way, there's a dragon breathing down from up top at you during the whole fight.
Yeah, he's not very nice. The first time I did this quest, though, I was a little disappointed that we didn't fight the dragon.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that he would just fly down, kind of like we were just talking about Mirrodin Kobolds, where he would just jump down at the end. But maybe if they redo it someday.
But it's not even I mean, you don't even fight the dragon in the next chain of quests, right? Like, you never see the dragon again.
No, you never see him. Yeah, you never see him again. Yeah.
The other two quests in this chain, breaking the ranks and what goes up. Again, they kind of feel somewhat straightforward D&D or DDO quests. Other than they're a little bit longer, but there's not really any like gimmicks or anything to them. I mean, you could say that what goes up, that you're on a flying iceberg, is kind of gimmicky, but it doesn't really impact the actual quest itself.
No, you could have did it on a mountaintop and it'd be the same quest.
And it does have, graphically, it's probably one of the most annoying quests that I've been in, because the snow just is really bright, and when it goes into Shadowfell on top of the snow, like, sometimes if your settings are not in a specific way, it's blinding.
Yeah, and actually, we've had a couple times where that quest has kind of lagged out on us a little bit, and if there was ever if you ever had a graphics problem with that, turn your graphics down just to do that quest.
The end fight for that one is a little tougher. There's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of respawns. You're trying to kill one guy that just kind of teleports around the map. So if you get spread out, and it can become a bear. It's a really good quest to do when you don't have an XP pot running, and you do the whole quest, you get to the end, and then chug an XP pot right at the end. That's how I like to do that one. But all in all, good. And we'll talk about Stormhorns, the Explorer area, another time. That's coming up. But in any case, so that's Stormhorns. Which there's a couple other chains we could talk about. Which one do you want to talk about next?
Well, and we were talking about this for a brief moment before we started the show. The Dreaming Dark, when it first came out, was a quest chain that we did several times, but I can't remember the last time I did it. They're not bad quests. It's got the highest level solo quest in the game. That's actually kind of fun. but it's one of these quests where I think either the loot might be a little outdated, or it's one of those ones that just gets skipped because people go over to the Forgotten Realms.
There isn't really a lot of loot in this one. If you're talking about name loot, you can get ion stones at the end, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
So a lot of times people call this Inspired Quarter 2 because it's kind of the second part of the chain. Right. This follows up Mind Sunder and that chain. I actually do find groups fairly often do the first couple quests. People tend not to do the solo quest because it's a solo quest, so you don't get any XP bonuses to it. If you need a little bit extra coin lord favor, you can do it. Although I actually find some of the other quests are a little easier to solo that are group quests than this one is, because you have to figure out where you got to go. And if you don't like jumping, it's not going to be your quest. And the thing about this is a solo quest is if you're not a Mario person, there's no one else to do it for you, right?
Right.
So that's something to kind of keep in mind. But the other quests, Eye of the Titan, and which one's? I can't remember. Reclaiming Memories is the second one, and I think Mining for Ancient Secrets is the third one. And Raiding the Giant's Vault is the solo.
Right.
Those ones are all actually really short, pretty easy to do. Well, even on Reaper, they're not going to take you too much time. The catch is if you don't do Eye of the Titan, it's really hard to get to the island, which is where the other ones are. You can do it, but it pretty much, as far as I know, the only way you can do that is with the Bracelet of Friends.
Yeah, and actually, Eye of the Titan has one of my favorite DDO magic items that I've never seen, and that's the Ear Dweller. And I thought that was so cool when I first found out about it, because in old D&D you had the earwigs or ear mites or whatever they were, and they would bore into your ear and kill you, and that was kind of made me think about this for this magic item. I can't pronounce the Zasoian Ear Dweller,
something like that.
Yeah, which I thought, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. If you're a magic user, it's a great item. If you want to hear, it's not. But yeah, this quest chain, it's a good quest chain. It's got a hard end fight. The Dreaming at the very
Dreaming
end.
Dark does, yeah. And that's one that you won't see a lot of people do Dreaming Dark unless they're running it for Iron Stones or if they need Coin Lord favor. To which I would say, if you need Coin Lord favor, why are you running this quest? You don't need it for any of the marks for Coin Lord. People tend not to run it. The end fight's just pretty harsh at level.
Yeah,
that's
or they'll run it once, and then that'll be it. I mean, you run it to complete it. There's a sense of self-worth there. But
it's worth running the one time. It's a fun quest. It's just the end fight is, particularly again if you're at level 18 and you're doing the quest on Elite. You're talking about a level 22 quest, heroic level 22 quest, but still, and then the end fight has some pretty nasty stuff going on, so it's a little bit more challenging. It's almost akin to a mini boss fight in a raid.
It kind of is.
You're not a raid,
and the more people you have in the party, the better, because there is a puzzle going on during the whole thing. So that tends to, between that and the getting your charisma sucked down to 0, it tends to be a difficult fight.
Well, I will say, probably the part that the reason why people find it difficult is they don't pay attention to the mechanics, because the boss has an effect that I think it's like eyes or something that spin around him and they do damage to you while you're close to him.
Right.
And a lot of people just kind of ignore that and don't realize it's going on. So it's part of the reason why it can be kind of difficult. But it's a longer quest. By the way, the Ear Dweller does drop in at one of the chests in Dreaming Dark as well.
Yes, it does.
And it is kind of funny because I've seen the thing on the ground, but I've never actually seen the Ear Dweller like crawling out of the chest. Because usually it's kind of, even today I see people like, you open the chest and as soon as that chest gets open you see a big fireball. Someone throws a fireball or throws a firewall on the ground, something like that, to catch it. But yeah, it's a good quest chain. I do see that one actually get run a fair amount, just because they're short, which helps you maximize that Reaper XP, because they don't take as long, and that doesn't quest length tends to not impact. I mean, there is a quest length modifier, but it's when you look at the quest compendium or the quest portal, it says short, medium, long, very long, and that's the only thing that really affects
Right.
it. And even the penalty, you lose some XP from on a short as compared to like the base of medium, but they're so much faster that you don't really notice it. It's not a big deal.
And I forget which one it is. Is it not? Is it Reclaiming Memories, where you got the giant automation where you follow him through the quest?
No, that's Eye of the Titan.
Is it Eye of the Titan? Okay.
Which is the first one.
And when we first saw that was actually kind of cool. I mean,
yeah, it's a fun little mechanic.
Because it kind of opens it up. I mean, if you're so used to doing quests like in this little dungeon or even in like the pseudo outdoor areas, but here now you got this ginormous wide space, and here's this big automatron just walking through the quest, and you just got to basically follow him. That's kind of cool.
And then you get to go back to the same place in the present, which is kind of neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although I will say, it's a lot of people don't realize Eye of the Titan is actually part of the second quest chain for Inspired Quarter. I've noticed that of late. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna run Inspired Quarter 1, and they like don't run Shipwreck and then run Eye of the Titan. Like that's not. Shipwreck is part of the first chain. Eye of the Titan is part of the second chain.
If you like the stories that come out of the quest, this is a good chain to run.
Yes, indeed. Let's see. What does it leave us? Let's talk about Shavrath, Devils of Shavrath, which was our first experience with going to Shavrath. There's some more quests now that the level 13, 15 range.
Right.
But these ones are level 19. They culminate in Tower of Despair, which was the endgame raid for a long time.
Right.
The quote Dark Ages, where we weren't getting any new content because there was a basically this is the time frame where we went to free to play, the free to play model, or microtransactions, however you want to kind of put it. DDO became DDO Unlimited. There's the whole thing, but I mean that took like 9 months, and you can go back in time and listen to some of the DDOcast from that range, and there are a lot of people who are like, "There's no new content. Oh my gosh, give us new content." Yeah, it's kind of one of those time frames.
Right.
But these quests are actually really good. Again, this is where I was really referencing. These have challenging boss fights, mostly. So, let's see, Genesis Point, which is actually probably the easiest of the boss fights, probably, depending on which boss fight you pick.
Yeah,
and
some of these quests, again, have been ones that I haven't done in a long time, but I do remember that they do have quite more than average difficult boss fights, and that was right when Elite was still, most people were still running stuff on hard. I don't think bravery bonuses weren't around then. Nope. So, you had to have a really good hard-nosed group of guys to go into some of these quests on Elite. It was a little bit different back
Level
then.
cap was 20.
Yep.
So Genesis Point, the thing to know about Genesis Point is if you don't know which levers to pull, this is a bad quest to just pull every lever.
Yeah, it's a lever quest.
You can actually make it so you can't complete the quest if you don't do things correctly. See, Sins of Attrition is, again, this one's actually probably an easier boss fight, but probably has the hardest quest. There's a lot of spawns. You're in narrow corridors. There's some traps you have to watch out for. And it's devils, so you get a lot of the bearded devils and the orthons. And it's actually surprisingly difficult just to deal with a bunch of trash. And if you can actually get multiple waves, and then get a little more challenging as well. This one has a lot of optional things you can do. And there's a whole combination of things, because at the beginning of the quest, you basically, quote, pick your end boss by choosing something off of the table. And that kind of determines what end boss you have. And then there's some other things that I've never really bothered to figure it all out, because there's a bunch of side passages you can go down. Only one of which for that particular one of the quests is the one that you would want to go down, which is why people tend not to do them. But that affects the end boss fights. But the end boss tends not to be. Usually, what I see, people choose the same end boss every time, just like Genesis Point. People choose the same end boss. They don't. It's an easy end boss. They'll pick the easier of the end fights, so they don't really care about make the boss easy because we already think he's easy. So
well, the two things I remember about this quest is the loot. There is no name loot, so it's whatever's in the chest.
There is named belts.
The belts, correct, but not. I mean, not really.
That's true of all of
quest.
these.
Yeah, but not really that you would run this
necklaces.
quest over and over again to try and get something really good. That's the one thing that sprung out in my mind. And whirling blades. That's all I remember.
There's a lot of traps. Yeah, these 4 quests there's a set of necklaces and belts that pair with the rings at a Tower of Despair that are sadly completely out of date. Now, having said that, some of the belts do have nice clickies. Like you can get a jump clicky, an invisible clicky, or a greater heroism clicky. So those are kind of nice. The other ones, Bastion of Power. Again, the mob selection and how they kind of spawn on top of you can be. I still see giving people trouble. These are older quests, but they still give people a lot of trouble. You'll still see a lot of deaths. It's pretty common, and the end fight in this one is even kind of tougher than the other ones we talked about because you first have to defeat a Horned Devil. You can do a tricky method and it'll just go away, and it'll actually open an optional chest. It's a little bit of a trick to do that, and it involves air jets and timing. But the real end boss is a Merilith in a small area with Geralus, who are the cats that trip you. Kind of, they look like red lions. So getting tripped with a Merilith chasing you is not exactly ideal.
Yeah, we got party wiped in this one at least
There's
once.
casters. Yeah, it's a tougher end fight. It has a lockout mechanism, so if someone goes in early, then you're really in trouble.
Yeah.
And then New Invasion, which is a maze quest with changing start and end points. The only point that's always the same is where you start the first level. There's 3 levels. You have to find the way down to the second level, which moves around, and then that changes where you are on the second level to start. And you have to find the next. Everything moves in this one. Some of the walls move from run to run. So usually people get into trouble here is because they split up and get lost.
Yeah, and this is a timed quest. I mean, it's 90 minutes. Which, I mean, come on, if you can't do a quest in less than an hour, something's wrong. But still, this is an easy quest. This is a quest that you can easily get turned around in.
And the end fight is probably the hardest end fight in the game because the floor will blow up on you. Right. And again, if you don't understand the mechanic, you're going to have a really nasty time.
There's a great item that comes out of this quest, though, the Shinto cord. I love it. That if you have a monk, you want to try and do this quest, especially if you have a Shinto monk.
Well, actually, what I'd really recommend is that you do it once and then try and get people to run Tower of Despair, because all of the necklaces and belts drop in the second chest in Tower of Despair.
Yep.
And you're guaranteed to get one of them, so someone probably has gotten what you want and probably doesn't need it, so you can get a lot of stuff out of that. Yeah, New Invasion is a very difficult end fight, especially if you don't know what you're doing and have no coordination in your party. You will hate life. You will use every minute of those 90 minutes to figure out how to do it.
Yeah. Read the wiki on this one before you go in if you've never done it before.
I will say, though, that I did have one of my shining achievements of DDOs. I finished this quest in like 10 minutes once.
Oh, wow.
It was ridiculous. Well, it was one of those things that you go in and turn. Hey, look, second level. Go down second level. Hey, turn. Hey, look, third level. Go down. Hey, look, end fight. Holy cow.
Yeah, that doesn't happen very often.
No. My second fastest run was easily probably 3 times as long as that one. So, there's 2 other quests that are out in here. Weapon Shipment and Wrath of Flame. Wrath of Flame is... there's nothing really special about it. It's kind of how I'd say it. It's not a bad quest. It has an interesting. It's one of those quests where who's the good guy becomes the question. for a variety. But that can be kind of a fun quest. But again, there's not really anything that I would point to as being really special, other than you get the cool hat.
Yeah, the hat. So if you're looking for an item that has feather falling and underwater action, and you don't do crafting, and you're looking for something higher level,
And you don't want to get blown over.
And you don't want to get blown over because
or you
this
just
one
want to
will
look cool.
It is a cool looking hat, I will admit.
It's a musketeer style hat. It's got the big pimp feather in it.
Yeah, and I don't know what came first, this or the cosmetic. It's probably this came first, and then they made a cosmetic. Yeah.
Actually, the Lucky Hat might have come out earlier, but I'm not sure.
No.
It wasn't as readily available as it was back then, though. But the other one, Weapon Shipment, this has off and on been a really popular run loot farm, mostly because of the mnemonic bauble, which is a clicky for a mnemonic clicky, so you can get 200 to 600 spell points out of the thing. I only get one click at it. However, I would say this quest is actually a lot of fun. This is another kind of an assault quest where you get to a certain point and then mobs just come. And they did a fun thing with this one in that it scales with how many people you have in your party. So the more, if you've never done it, please go into this quest on Elite with a full party. Even if you go in over leveled, it's pretty nuts.
You will feel like you're in a raid.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff coming at you at the same time. Even if you want to do it grossly overpowered, that's totally fine. Going on level 30, but at least experience this quest once if you can. With a full party, the full party is important.
Yeah, there's also another good item that comes out of here, the Mad Loot. So if you're a bard and you're looking for a big club, that's the weapon to have.
The Shimmering Arrowhead, which comes out here as a trinket, it was also a pretty nice one. That it puts crippling on your weapons, which is kind of a rarer thing that you can do. But the one that people are usually looking for is the bauble.
Right.
If it was not bound when you picked it out of the box, I would probably overpay to get it out of an auction house if someone put it up there. But
yeah, that's one of those bloodstones. Something like that, where it's just a rare drop that people love to have.
It's probably more useful than a blood. This is Ring of Spell storing level.
Right. Yeah, two different items, two different levels of characters. But yeah,
if you are trying to get that, I do recommend running on Elite 2 just because you get more chests, which kind of helps.
Yep.
But still, it's not a bad loot farm for as boring as it could be. Especially if you get a full party and it really gets nuts. It's a lot of fun. I remember when they made that change and someone went into it solo, and like, oh, it's kind of more interesting. And we went in on the group and like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. This is awesome. So, let's see. Let's talk about Murder, Night, and Riddle, and then we'll finish talking about House Cannith. Murder by Night and Riddle are an Evening Star. They're standalone quests.
Yep.
They're probably the least run quest in Evening Star. Again, the level 19 range does not help.
Right.
Because there's so many other options. I think people just aren't as familiar with them because they don't have epic versions. And they were never... They came out with Evening Star or with Menace in the Dark, and I think they were kind of there to help bridge the gap a little bit. But they just were never really popular. Mostly because most of the stuff to do in Evening Star at the time was really kind of that level 20 Menace in the Dark epic level range. So,
yeah, and to be honest, we accidentally go into Murder by Night all the time when we're supposed to be doing the Druid's quest because they're in the same building.
And they're almost exactly the same, except one's with werewolves and one's with plants.
Right. And actually, Murder by Night, there is something to mention about that quest. When you enter that quest, you come toe-to-toe with a red name werewolf that can kick your butt. That right out of the bucket. And most of the time, you don't have time to do any buffs or anything. He comes barreling up to you because, guys will zone in, they'll take a couple of steps forward. And as soon as you do that, thing is on you. And it can, if you're not ready for him, he can tear you a good one.
Yeah. The Riddle, they're both interesting quests. The Riddle's a little bit longer than Murder by Night. the riddle is
Got a mimic.
also has a bunch of will-o-wisps, which are not my favorite mob to fight.
Well, yeah. I think that's been established through this whole series that will-o-wisps are the bane of DDO.
I mean, look, I would tell you to run every quest at least once.
Yeah.
But I'd be lying if I expected you to go back a lot. There's nothing wrong with the quest. It's the level range competing with other quests. You're just probably not going to run it. That's really just what it comes down to.
I mean, if you're doing it for favor, that'd be one of the only reasons that. I mean, we tend to forget about these quests just because they're not in a chain. They're kind of off by themselves, type of thing.
They're in an awkward spot for the level range. You're probably not going to run if you're running level 19 quests. You're probably going to be running everything else kind of in that 16 to 18 range anyway. There's so many quests to choose from if you're holding 18, which most people do, so you get into that same problem, and they're vying for attention, and there's a lot of other more popular options. And I don't think in this case the popularity has to do anything to do with their quality. There's not really any loot that comes out of them. It's just they never grabbed hold. People ran what they were used to already. They just don't tend to run it. They're still not used to running them.
If you're trying to catch up to your guild mates in XP, to do them on a side evening somewhere, that's about what we do.
And the problem with you can run all these 19 quests at level 20 or 21 on Elite and still get a bravery bonus. You can't get the Reaper bonus, but you can still get the bravery bonus. But even that is underwhelming when you start looking at how much more XP you get for running things on actually Epic. So, which they did a good job of doing in establishing that. All right, so the last kind of section of level 19 quest we had to talk about is House Cannith, which is a fun little area, I think. It's got 3 explorer areas, although there's only one that has all the level 19 quests, and there's an offshoot explorer areas to get to the raids. The quests are power play, schemes of the enemy, and blown to bits.
Which is still one of my favorite quests in the game. I love that quest.
Well,
that's a great...
Any quest that they give you explosives is going to be fun.
Yep, that's where I was going with that. Well, let's start there. I mean, here you got a quest where you basically have to blow up boxes that are in your way to get through the quest. And if you don't know where you're going and you're not cheating and have a map up on your other screen, this can be a real adventure in patience, because you got to blow up boxes and you got to go run this corner. And then, then they're not required. There are a couple of big red names in here outside of the final encounter that you can bump into, and they're not pushovers.
No, I do not usually do them. I do not usually see people do them.
Yeah,
it was a while before I realized there were optionals, and then we actually hey, let's try one of these, and we did it. And that's why people don't do them.
Yeah. So this is almost a quest that I would almost recommend doing the first time on normal. Just to, if you're looking for House Cannith favor, you want to do this quest, but hey, you've never done it before. Do it on a little bit of easier difficulty just to get through it. And it's got a super tricky ending too. So, you can dump out of the quest and finish it, or you can try to, go for what's behind curtain number 3 and get your butt kicked if you don't know what you're doing. So it's definitely a fun quest.
Because the end of this is just kill all the paladins.
No, but then there's the big, what do they call them? Hang on, I gotta look. The Iron Fire Bomber.
Oh, that's the optional.
Oh, that is the optional. That's one of them. Yeah. But if you activate him,
good luck.
Good luck. You got to run like hell. Well, I mean, so that's the second end chest in that quest. And if you don't have Dimension Door, you're running for your life, and chances are you're not going to make it out.
We'll say though, I did, because of when this came out and cap was still 20. And we ran it. I think the first time I ran it on hard or something like that, and then I ran it on Elite. and I was laying a mine. And in Elite, there's these gates that like intermittently open and close. And
Yes.
like the first time those turned on me, I was in the middle of laying a mine, and I didn't realize like, oh, that's weird. I wonder what that noise is. And then I turned around and there was a gate in my way. And I got blown up. I was like, that's not good.
Yeah. Yeah. This is one that can be hard on your items too if you die too many
Yeah.
times. So you got to really be careful.
I did have an experience too where I was running this on my bard, and this is before Swashbuckler, so don't give me too much grief about my bard not being like it. But I couldn't kill the paladins because they're warforged, a little tougher, and had a little bit of extra fortification, and they can heal themselves. And I couldn't kill it. So what I ended up doing was I would dance them, lay a mine at their feet, dance them again, and run away.
Nice.
Got through it. It was
Yeah. If you have a smiting weapon, this whole quest chain, bring it along. I mean, I purposely keep an eye out for smiting weapons, probably around level 15, 16, somewhere in there, just so you have something if you want to get into House C.
The quote first quest. You can do these in order, but kind of the first quest is Power Play, which is an escort quest, but it's not the worst escort quest you'll ever run. She just holds up. If she gets attacked, you can send her back to the beginning if you need to.
Yeah, she can't die.
Yeah.
So
it's not the worst thing.
kind
But
of
you have to take her to 12 different locations to turn on the orb stuff. Watch out for traps. There's a few traps in here that are pretty brutal. There's kind of some optional stuff and some different ways you can go.
With a lot of these House C quests, electrical protection is key.
Watch out for artificers. that are buttheads. There's not really anything kind of crazy. The end fight is kind of interesting in that you have to find the guy. Well, I think he starts in the same spot, but yeah, you just kind of got to figure out where he is to fight him. And then Schemes of the Enemy is an interesting one. First of all, it has it really has the only piece of loot out of these three quests that I think is really still worth anything, and that's the Boots of Propulsion, which if you don't have, go get.
Yes, they are there. I mean, if you want striding, feather falling, and jump on one item,
and a clicky of abundant step.
Yep.
Pretty nice. This quest is interesting in that there's a couple different ways you can do it. At each stage, there's kind of I think you could say there's 3 acts, and the first 2 acts there's different ways you can do it because you have to get through a door at each of these acts. And there's actually you can go all the way through and find the combination to open the first one, or you can actually unlock the door. Well, there's a lever above the door if you can figure out how to get to it. I won't completely spoil it by telling you how to do it, but so that makes the quest a little bit shorter. And then the second door, there's a puzzle. It's really not that complicated, or you can bash down these huge breakers, which for some reason are on the wrong side of the door to lock it. But they're pretty beefy with hit points and have some high DR. If you can do it and know how to do it, the puzzle option is actually a lot faster, but people tend not to do it because I think it's easier for most people, and maybe they didn't even realize how easy the puzzle is, but it's like, oh, puzzle, or I can just beat something down. All right, auto attack, AFK for 2 minutes.
Yeah, and that's always been the downside of puzzles, right? People don't have any patience sometimes, especially if they're trying to rip through a quest.
Some people aren't good at puzzles, like my old D&D group. But I once gave them, the logic puzzles that you have where like such and such, you're trying to pair up like 4 different things, 4 sets of 4.
Sure.
I gave them one of those puzzles, and the first thing that they said was, "Oh, I think there's probably a trick here, so let's assume that these all mean the opposite of what they mean." And I'm just like, "Oh God, we're gonna be here forever." Whereas the end fight for Schemes though can be, again, it actually does have a 2 ways you can do it. I don't think I've ever attempted or seen anyone do the puzzle that will end it. Or you can just beat the thing down. which
Yeah.
isn't bad if you're a ranged character. If you're a melee character, my condolences. Bring haste pots.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough end fight. Ranger or spell casters
It's not tough. It's just
come.
long and frustrating because the cannon
Yeah,
moves around, and you get to the cannon, and then he like relocating. Like, no, I just got here. But let's see. That pretty much covers all of the heroic quests. We haven't really talked about the raids, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Anything else you want to say about the rest of those quests there?
no. Only thing I would say is I'm hoping in the future at some point we get more House C quests. It would be nice to see a little bit more with the Warforged. I've heard you say this a couple of times. Warforged get a bad rep. In the early days of DDO, Warforges were more popular because they didn't need to breathe. They were immune to poison.
Immune to disease. I mean, they're immune to a lot of things.
Yeah, there was a lot of things, and then they kind of nerfed them a little bit. Give Warforges a chance. I think they're a great addition to D&D in this perspective. I mean, you have to remember when Eberron came out, this was brand new. This type of D&D was brand new with Warforged and things like that. I think it's a very cool addition to the game. I wish there was more of it.
The reason they get a bad rap is because of Reaper mode and penalties to self-healing.
Yep.
So, and there are general penalties to healing. I think a lot of people tend not to invest in healing amplification on them as well, which doesn't help. In any case, let's briefly talk about the raids. You're probably not going to run these for leveling. We'll just get to come out and say that. You're also probably not going to run. So there's Dreaming Dark's not a raid. We talked about that one, but it's kind of the capstone quest. The 3 raids at this level are Master Artificer, Lord of Blades, and Tower of Despair. And we're talking about them on heroic levels, but Master Artificer and Lord of Blades have epic versions. You're probably going to run them on epic. That's probably kind of just the way this works these days. More because it's really hard to find a party for them in heroics, and if you're running them now. Having said that, Lord of Blades, the way that the loot mechanic works is you probably want to use the wiki to figure out what level you need to run it to get the level of gems, or I don't even remember what they're called anymore, to upgrade your weapon. So you're probably that's going to determine more what level you'd run it on than anything else. I think the Master Artificer and Lord of Blades are 2 of the best raids in the game. I think the Lord of the Blades is still, if not the best raid boss, one of the best. And I think Master Artificer, and I've said this on the show a few times, is probably the most complete raid, just in terms of like integrating a puzzle and fights, and if you think about raids as this tactics kind of mechanic, it's one of the best tactical raids that integrates a puzzle in really, really, really well. So these days, though, people generally kind of ignore the puzzle.
Yeah, and I've done, and I'll admit, I have not done Tower of Despair, only because by the time I was coming around to level 20 on that, nobody was running it anymore, and I just kind of skipped it. I would love to go back and do it someday, but out of the other 2, Master Artificer, I do like that one better than. I mean, I love them. I like them both. I don't run them very often, only because of the way that things work nowadays, as opposed to the way they were, when those raids came out. That's when I did them, was when they came out within the first couple of months. And they are good raids. They are ones to do. I mean, if you haven't done them before, put out an LFM. Somebody may say, "Oh, yeah, I'm flagged for that. I can run through that," and I think you'll enjoy them.
I'd try to start with a group of friends so you have at least the basics of the party. Look, if you're level 30, you can go run these quests on heroic, elite, and you'd probably be just fine. As long as you got a couple of people. But they're a lot of fun. The Lord of Blades, when it came out, really brought back tanks. Both of these kind of did. We were kind of running without tanks for a while. Then people all of a sudden, hey, we need a tank. These things hurt.
Yeah, well, that was a theme for all the House C quests, where you had to have somebody that was big and tough in the front rank, or those blade Blades Horns and all those other guys will just mob right over you.
Yep. Anything else you want to say about the heroic side of quests, and then we'll kind of talk about level 20?
Nope, I think I'm good.
So there's a couple quests at level 20 in epics. The thing that I wanted to kind of highlight here is this is where bravery bonus rules change. All through heroics, so 1 to 19, any quest that's level 1 to 19, you need to be no more than 2 levels above the quest level on normal. So if it's level 10 quest on normal in your compendium, that's what it lists, and you could be level 12. For level 20, it's 3 levels higher. So if you're running a level 20 quest, you can be level 23. And you'll still get a bravery streak. The Reaper penalties for being over level still apply those are across the board. So that may change what level you run these at. We've actually talked about these quests before, but now we'll talk about them in terms of an epic in level 20. Small problem, Party Crashers, and Snitch, and Under the Big Top. So you run Carnival at level 20, which is, I mean, they're basically exactly the same. I think they're a little bit more fun at epics, personally. The only real difference, I think, is the end fight and Small Problem. There is one.
Yeah, and again, that is escorting what's his name? Brawny Pits. Brawny Pits to the very end on Epic. That is tough. I mean, you turn your back for 1 second and he's on the ground.
He's a little beefier than most things we've escorted, though. It's not too bad. But I mean, functionally, it's the same quest.
Yeah. Yeah, there isn't a whole lot function. Yeah, you're right. I mean, and that's important too. I think with a lot of these, the quest itself hasn't really changed a whole lot. It's just that it's just at a higher level.
I will say, well, go ahead. You finish your thought.
Well, I was going to say, if you did them in heroics, which some people skip over them because it's at a weird level 5 to 6, I think. You can come back to them later, and Party Crashers still is one of the better quests to get collectibles out of in the game.
Yeah, this is kind of a weird level range. If you're doing kind of the Reaper leveling thing, this is where it gets a little tricky, because when you hit level 20, because you're going into epics, there's actually a noticeable little bit more of a challenge shift. And you're running on Reaper, it becomes a little bit more noticeable, I think. So that those first couple of quests that you're going to run in epic, if you're running them on a Reaper, are probably a little bit more difficult than you think they're going to be, or might be used to them on Elite.
I haven't had the pleasure yet.
You will one day. We'll get there eventually with DDOCast Splat. But yeah, it's just something to kind of be a little bit aware of. That's not to say that some of the quests are grossly more difficult, but I do find, just because of that jump from level 19 to level 20 quests, like the epic quest, is quite a bit more noticeable than any other level range you're probably going to run into. That's kind of where I kind of landed on this. So just kind of be aware of that.
If you're a first life or even a second life and you're doing epics, Epic Elite is still tough, and I'm guessing Epic Reaper's one notch harder. So
yeah, it is. But especially these first couple levels, because once you get into like level 23, 24, you start picking up some of that better gear, and it kind of helps mitigate some of that change. But it's just something to kind of be aware of. The other quests you can run at level 20 are the Bargain of Blood, Black Lock, Storm the Beaches, Tide Turns. Spies in the House is level 21, but it's sort of part of that chain. But Bargain of Blood is actually a really popular one. It is actually pretty easy for level 20 compared to some of the other ones. It's short. It's a popular token run. You get tokens of the 12.
Yep.
Storm of the Beaches is kind of the opposite.
And I will say, on Epic, Storm the Beaches, those ballistas can mess you up big time.
Yep.
You got to really watch out for that because they're not the same as what they were on Heroic.
No.
I can remember my brother stepping out. We were on the boat. You step out from behind the boat and try to shoot a missile weapon at one, and all of a sudden, boom, he was dead. And I'm like, whoa. That was the first time we ever did that on Epic, and I'm like, okay, we got to watch out for those darn things.
If you can get past the point where this is really frustrating and annoying and just kind of enjoy the absurdity of the whole thing, it does kind of have an interesting, it can be kind of fun. Just kind of be aware of the fact that ballistas shoot. And they shoot big.
And they hit hard. Yep.
You don't even get hit by it. I actually had one go over my head and it killed me. I mean, I think it determined, the computer determined that it went through me, or like I was within its effect range, but it doesn't have to just blow up near you. It can go through you, which would make sense for an arrow that big, right? I mean,
well, yeah, and if you ever wondered why there were ballistas on castles in medieval times, this is the reason why.
I don't think their ballistas exploded, but yeah.
No, but still.
But these are all. I actually prefer doing all these quests on Epic than I do on Heroics. On Heroic, they're almost a little too easy because they're level 5 or 7 quests on normal in Heroics. So I don't know. I just kind of prefer them in Epics.
Yeah, and in on Heroics, that's another range where you could be doing something else. Mm-hmm. And then you can come back to these in Epics. Yeah.
So, all right. I think we can get on to sales. That
all
sounds
right.
Good.
Yeah.
There is no game news. It's a short week. It's a holiday week in the U.S. Our Thanksgiving was on Thursday. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully your food was really good. So bonus days for the week was a 50% bonus to Guild Renown, which is pretty darn slick. And then it was also on top of that a buddy bonus weekend. So 10% extra XP per person in your party, not including raids, sadly. But I mean, that's a really good bonus weekend. I think they called it a recruitment weekend, right? So more people, more Guild Renown. So have fun with that. If you've been storing up your sagas to turn in for Guild Renown, now is the time. I don't know if they've ever seen plus 50% for Guild Renown before.
No, it doesn't sound familiar to me either.
The holiday sale, so the Cyber Monday, Black Friday sales, different this year, surprisingly. In years past, the expansion packs have been really cheap. I think the main reason they did that is, one, Men of Standard Arc isn't available right now. Well, that would be awkward. And maybe they're trying something different. So, and it's also entirely possible that they decided that this would be a better way to get money, as opposed to making some of their expansions really dirt cheap. I don't know. In any case, what you can get 75% off of Warlock. Hey, that's pretty neat. You get 50% off of character slots. You can get 35% off of Epic Hearts of Wood. That's all pretty great. That's through Monday the 27th. You get double bonus points through November 27th. So you've been waiting to get some bonus points. Now is a good time to do it.
I did. Quite a few actually.
Yeah. The $200 pack with bonus points I think is like 33,000 points. So it's a lot of points. You can get plus 3 Tomes of Fate. Those are on sale through the 30th. You get Heroic and Epic Autos boxes through November 27th that come with savory turkey, of all things.
Okay.
It's a healing clicky. It's a consumable healing thing that Warforged cannot use. I didn't actually see if you could put it in the Stone of Change and make it into a Warforged version. So, we'll see. You can also get you can still get plus 20 Hearts of Wood with you get a plus 5 Heart of Wood with your purchase. We'll actually talk about that in a minute when we get to Lightning Post. They also did this one for you, one for your alt thing. Only they They did bags for one of them, which doesn't really work very well because they're bound to character.
On the character, yeah, I saw that.
I love you guys, but why?
Yeah, I think somebody was in a hurry to get out for the holidays on that one.
Yeah, because it's like, okay, cool. I bought a huge a gargantuan ingredients bag, and I got a free one. What am I going to do with two of them? Right? Because they're bound to character. There was a question about why they are bound to character. I think the reason for that, and I'm not entirely sure, but I believe the reason why the bags from the store are bound to character is because you could put bound to account items or bound to character stuff in the bound to account bags and then move them to different characters.
Oh.
So they didn't want that to be a thing that you could do.
Yeah.
You could get 2-for-1 Tomes of Fate, and these you can pass around, right? So you can. This includes the +3 Tomes of Fate. So if you don't have any Tomes of Fate on a character, this is actually a pretty good deal. You can get 2 for the price of 1. That gives you +3 Fate points for purchasing Twists of Fate for Epic Destinies and stuff like that. You get 2-for-1 Jeweler's Toolkits, which is less exciting. All that stuff will be available to November 30th. Gumsking in the chat is saying he thinks that we'll see the expansion pack sale in December once the market is fixed. They are 85% off on the Lotro side. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm guessing is going to happen. Just because Menace in the Underdark is not there, they didn't want to do that. The freebie for the week is a stack of, I believe it was 5 stat potions. I completely blanked on what they're called. But the code for that is all the stats. Lasting Supreme Ability Potions. You get 5 of those. So it's 60 minutes of +2 to all your stats. Which can be great for a whole variety of things. It's actually a pretty good freebie.
Yeah, for low-level guys.
Mm-hmm. I've kind of always conflicted. Should I use them my low-level guys or when I'm leveling up? Or should I use them for my DC, hoard them on my DC caster? What I generally do is hoard them for both and use them for neither.
I get them in my daily rolls all the time. I think I got 10 on one character.
I've got like 60 on my DC. Like I said, I save them for both and use them for neither. So there you go. Anyways, that'll bring us to community news. There was a 260th Chronicle. The Truth Seekers are hosting their annual giveaway on Argonessen. Axel delved into the world of DDO-based phone apps. So if you want to know what phone apps you can get, and there are probably more than you think there are, it's a good way to go about it. Gratch is hosting a player-made Ravenloft video trailer contest. This is a thread to keep an eye on. Someone already posted. I haven't checked in a couple days, but someone already posted their trailer. So what he's doing, we talked about this last week, is he's doing. There's no trailer video that's come out from Standing Stone Games, and it doesn't sound like there's going to be one. And so Gratch is hosting this competition that you can put in your fan base or fan made trailer contest for video. It's going to run until 2 weeks after Ravenloft comes out, which would be, I think, December 19th if it comes out on time, and December 5th. That gives you time to go in and get actual game footage. Someone made one already, and it's amazing.
I wish I was as skilled at some of the video editing as some of these guys are, because so I had a feeling that some of these are going to be really cool.
Yeah. And the top prize is 23,000 turbine, or 20,000 points. So it's a huge prize.
Yeah, I was gonna say 1,000, not 100, 23,000.
Yes, this is a beefy bundle of points. So there is a great incentive. Second place was 5,000, and I don't remember what. Third place was a 30-month VIP code. So yeah, thank you, Gratz, for putting on a really cool one. This is I'm really looking forward, and I really hope a lot of more people play this and do this. If you need some ideas on how to make a video, listen to our live streaming episode from a couple weeks back. You'll get a lot of ideas on how it's essentially the same thing, just with editing and not live. It's great.
I think there's going to be a race to Strahd to see who can get a party wipe video first.
There you go. That'd be good. But yeah, check this out. Keep an eye on it too, and really support the people who make it. Like I said, the one that was up there was amazing.
I'll have to check it out.
It looked pretty professional in terms of like what you might actually expect from if Standing Stone Games put one out. But it was really cool. It was also kind of got me a little excited, and it's not spoilery either. There's not really anything that's you're gonna feel like it's you spoil or anything like that. I watched it and I was like, oh, that looks really cool. I don't know what any of it means. You'll probably know a lot more about some of the stuff you might. There's a couple of iconic shots, I imagine they are. I don't really know. So,
well, there's been just to take a side turn here for a second. There's been a lot of guys that have been streaming the Lamania stuff. And I've watched a couple of them, and some of them actually really aren't that spoilery. So if you just want to take a look and see the guys just running through the countryside, running through the towns, taking notice of, hey, this is different. I've never seen this in DDO before, things like that. It looks so great.
Another contest, Cycle Blonde is continuing the screenshot contest with the best Ravenloft screenshot. Check that out. There's no guild for the week. It's just an advertisement. Hey, if you're looking for a guild or looking for guildies, looking for a certain style of play, find out what you're looking for by posting in the recruitment forums. Good plug there. The comment for the week: how much damage will a turkey's attack do?
Ooh, the same as the raptor.
I'm going to say that the turkey's attack is going to put you to sleep.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Low amount of damage, but it puts you to sleep, right? Grumsgang is saying 1 damage to hit points and 1,000 damage to dignity.
Yeah. Or its damage attack will do at least 10 pounds.
That's my great grandpa. He'd probably know. He actually lived on a turkey farm. He was raised on a turkey farm.
Oh, there you go. I got them running wild by me here in Wisconsin. They're like vermin.
Let's see. Fansite News. DDOCast got a shout out for our preview of Ravenloft last week with Linnabelle. It was a lot of fun. Damsels of DDO slayed together. They did episode 79. Dirty William continues a preview to Ravenloft. Mickey headed to Lamania to take a look at Mr. Ravenloft. Sip turned on the waterworks. McVegan Pants is live streaming DDO and will soon be on DDO stream. Are we sure that's not like an alternative name for Jerry? Like he's double timing there?
I don't know. Those vegan guys are kind of weird.
Bachelor plays DDO. You can check out his show from November 20th. Even Note flagged for Defiler of the Just in the latest stream with Even. And Bard Live is holding a recruitment dive. The Let's Talk Shop section. There's still time to support Team DDO on Movember. And Cordovan talked about Black Friday sales and more on his weekly Wednesday lunchtime live streams. You want to check that out there. Let's see. Videos this week on blogs. Geek Mom on our Confessions of Geek Mom blog talked about it being game day. A really fun. If you're a pen and paper person, I highly recommend this article or this blog post. Just from the standpoint of it's her experience DMing for kids, her kids and some of her kids' friends. So it was really kind of a fun, different viewpoint into playing D&D.
It is a different experience with younger kids.
Uh-huh.
I've been DMing pen and paper for a very long time, and when you do kids, a language aside, you have to really draw their interest more than you do older people. And once you get their interest in the game, then all bets are off. Then you're having a really great time.
Yeah. Let's see. Mickey's Delirium looked at Mr. Ravenloft, and Sip also had a post on optional objectives, which we'll link to as well. An update on Team of Movember. The team is up to, Jerry's is up to $2,338, and the team is up to just over $3,000. So that's fantastic. Nicely done there. All right. I think that will bring us to Lightning Post. So this is coming off of we're talking about our Ravenloft preview video and some stuff in there. Emerson wrote in, had some interesting thoughts I'd like to share. So he said, regarding the discussion of how to make named items have value other than platinum might impact loot sharing, he suggests that people are not going to do a thing where I'll give you the next item I find if you give me this item because I want that one. He doesn't think people are going to be saddled with record keeping of whom they owe what. Yeah, I think you're probably right. He doesn't think adding that's going to record keeping and trust of others to pay what they owe is probably not a good thing. I don't know. I think you'll have mixed results. If you're doing it with a pug, I agree. I don't think it's going to happen. Inside a guild, I think that you'll probably see some of that. He says he also has seen the suggestion that people just trade unbound items. Again, he doesn't think that's going to work, both because the supply of trade items will shrink drastically once people are all feeding them to their sentient weapons. Yeah, probably true. Because no one wants to do the math and mail items to quote to buy some raid drop. Yeah, probably also true.
Well, think about it from that one perspective. I mean, when crafting started, so what did you do before that? Well, you took your item trash to the tavern to sell. So now you turn around and you crunch it for essences. Mm-hmm. It's a little different, but the same principle. So, if you got an item that you dropped in a chest and you could crunch it for essences, or you can give it to the other guy in the group who really wants it.
Yeah, he says that he thinks that we'll just have to deal with the fact that selfish people have now been given a better reason to be selfish. More items will just be silently picked up rather than being offered to the group, and more items which are offered to the group will be rolled on, even if the player is rolling has no intention of doing anything other than feeding their gem. Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And like I said last week, I like the use and the idea in the system, other than the fact that people are not going to be giving things away as much. So
remember everybody, we're in this to have fun, you know. And that's important. That I think that's just as or more important than what you feed your sentient gem.
My suspicion is what's going to happen is you will see a rise in quote selfishness, and people hoarding those items for a little while, and then over time it'll kind of work its way back towards today's norm. It'll probably never get there. But I think as people make a weapon, if someone's making a sentient weapon and upgrading it so they can get more filigrees on it, while they're doing that, they're probably just going to grab everything they can grab. I have a suspicion that raid loot will be less common, and people will still be willing to give up raid loot because they understand that it's raid loot and people might want it. Probably not in terms of like the armors from Tempest Spine and stuff, because those are a dime a dozen. So but good raid loot, I have a feeling people will still offer people. The big thing here is we just don't know how easy is it going to be to get all these items, right? And if it's not really that hard, or if it's not that hard to upgrade, and you just need it to take some time and finding some of those items, once people kind of figure that out, I think you'll see that people will kind of get back towards where we are today. Again, I don't think we'll ever get back to that point. And I agree. I think you're going to see a lot of people, or at least some people, will no longer put stuff up for roll that they might have put up for roll, and people will definitely roll on things that they probably shouldn't be rolling on just to feed their gems. But I think we've kind of dealt with similar things before, and I think we've been okay, and I think we'll be fine in the long run. But that's not to say that I don't think he's wrong. He also said, so the discussion we were talking about plus 20 hearts of wood and the plus 5 heart of wood. The idea, I mentioned that the idea was with the plus 5 heart of wood is you can get rid of that third class. The problem, he says, with this is that the break point for builds is typically 6 levels. So he thinks the plus 5 should be eliminated, replaced with plus 6. So I don't necessarily agree with that. I get what you're saying, that people, 2, 6, 12 are kind of common benchmarks, but here's the thing. I totally agree that 6 is a very typical breakdown for level, but if you're doing a plus 20 heart of wood, and you're changing your classes, that means you need to get rid of all of your classes and go to a brand new one that's not one of the three. In
Right.
order for a +5 Heart of Wood not to achieve that, you would have to have all three of those classes have at least 6 levels.
Yeah. So the one time that I've used a +5 Heart of Wood was when I was experimenting with a build and I wanted to get rid of one level of wizard.
Mm-hmm.
And that worked out, actually 2 levels of wizard. So that worked out perfectly. But I understand what he's saying. You know what? It all depends on how you build your character.
No. I think the only people that, again, in order for a +5 Heart of Wood not to clear one of your classes, you would have to have all 3 classes at least at 6 levels. And while there are some builds that do that, I don't think it's that common.
No, I don't think so either.
So, sure, yeah, you're right. If you were in that boat, that would be a problem. But at the same time, I would say, they're giving us a +5 free Heart of Wood. They don't have to do that.
Yeah, the 2-for-1 sales, I'm actually kind of liking that mentality a little bit. Hopefully it'll continue.
So, the biggest thing that I think is they're not very upfront about the whole 3 levels thing, that you can only have 3 levels and how that plays with reincarnation. You still see people on the forum say, I can't reincarnate correctly. And what it really is because they had a 3rd level that they didn't get rid of. So I wish they were more. That was more upfront when people were building characters. I think that's really where the breakdown is.
And actually, I just did a reincarnation, and I had a similar situation, but I just did a racial reincarnation instead. It's like, you know what? I'm not going to screw around with it. I did a racial instead, and I'm happy.
Lance Rodanian says he likes the idea that sentient weapons stay with you from level 1 to 30. However, the heroics the sentient weapons itself should have no bypass qualities available until epics. He says maybe small bits of melee power. And kind of goes into what he says, what he's read in novels that sentient weapons have explained. They choose their owner and have memories from other lives. They provide insight and guard their owners by watching their backs. Which would be kind of fun if some of they could figure out how to do that. It'd be a really hard thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about this too with our guild. In the old days, when you had a intelligent artifact or weapon or whatever, I mean, the most it ever did was just lip off at you all the time, right? It was just annoying. It was something that the DM used to add color to the game. I know last week you mentioned that, you can turn the weapon commentary off. Are you kidding? I wish there was a way for me to turn it up one notch. But I think it's going to be fun. There's some stuff you just cannot program for. I'm sure it's a nightmare as it is right now. So until we actually see what we get, let's hold back our wish list a little bit.
Some of his other ideas was that the sentient weapon should be earned endgame, and you get to choose what form the weapon is. I have a feeling he hasn't actually listened to, he's listened to an older show than we were talking about last week. But the good news is you do get to essentially choose what form the weapon is, and you get to put it on an existing weapon. I know a lot of people are bummed that you can't put it on green steel and stuff, but I mean, those are. I can't imagine what it would take to code that.
Remember that there are certain things that go back. The further back they go in DDO history, the harder they're going to be to change going forward. So,
but anyways, those are some opinions. I think he's got some interesting ideas there. But we're gonna get what we're gonna get, and I mean, I'm excited about the system, so I'm looking forward to it.
So am I.
Our question for the week comes from No Fake on Galanda. He says, will DDO ever really reward characters who go full class with meaningful enhancements instead of just a +X to main ability score on some and minor enhancement to persuade people to go full class, seeing as multi-class is way too prevalent? Now I'm going to preface this question is probably about a year old. But even then, my initial response to that would be, I feel like there are rewards to go full class, depending on the class.
And in fact, like I mentioned, my group just did a reincarnation, and that actually came up. So only one of the people, one out of us 4 had full class.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, we were multi-class. So we're like, oh, what do you get at the end here? Okay, well, this isn't bad, you know. And actually, this question did just come up with us. So my response to it would be maybe when they're done with all the character passes, maybe then they'll do a level 20 pass and then a level 30 pass to see, you know, what, now that we have, this has been changed, these classes have been changed, they've been updated. Let's take a look at what the level 20 and level 30 end rewards are.
I think there's actually a lot of them are. They have been doing that too with the capstones in the trees. They do the classes. I think a lot of them are actually really compelling. That's
I do. Well, I do too. I do too. But I mean, he's got a point though. I mean, it does seem like, because I think nowadays it is harder to go up in a full class than a multi-class.
Yeah, somewhat.
For some,
if you're a caster class, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. You know, I see a lot of people multi-classing these days. The most common thing is they're doing an iconic life, or they just want to have rogue levels for trapping while they're doing a heroic life and stuff like that.
Yep.
But you know, when you're talking about, there's a weird tension here too, because if you're just running from 1 to 20, it doesn't matter what the capstone is, right? It's not
true.
It's not appealing. Yeah. So
yeah,
there's a lot of people that will multi-class because they're just gonna hit 20 and reincarnate back down. So if they want evasion, then they're gonna take evasion, right? Now, having said that, they do actually use evasion as a benchmark of the capstone needs to be as good as evasion, or better. Is that always true? Yeah, you could argue that. And I think in a lot of cases you could say yes, it is, and no, it isn't. But that's kind of a benchmark because it's pretty easy to take 2 levels of rogue or monk and you just get evasion. But I think there are a lot of really good ones, like the Henshin Mystic capstone gives you key generation, which if you're in a monk and you really like having key attacks, I love that capstone. It's my favorite capstone. I don't really like the tree as much, but I love that capstone. I call Henshin Mystic flashy monk style because it has a lot of flashy things in it that I really like, but aren't really that effective.
Yeah, but everybody sees ninja and they go ooh, and then they go that way instead.
I still use the Henshin Mystic capstone. I think the Ranger, the Deepwood Sniper capstone is really good. It's like +4 to dexterity and plus 20 melee and ranged, or like I think it's double strike or melee power. I think it's melee and range power, and you get double strikes and double shot somewhere else. So I think there are some really good capstones that really do that. But what what are you going for, right? So
yeah, I mean, it's all in your style of play and you know how are you going to stop at 20? You're going to keep going, you know, all those questions. It's kind of however you want to play it.
Yeah, and you know, if you're just going from 1 to 20 and reincarnating, then the capstone enhancements don't do anything for you anyways. So who cares, right? So,
right.
That's kind of where it ends up. But I don't think this question inherently kind of assumes that people are not being persuaded to go full class and multi-classing is way too prevalent, and I don't agree with that premise.
He uses the word meaningful, and I think that can be taken out. You know, I mean, I think that what's there is good. Could it be better? Maybe, but
it's a balancing act though, because you don't want multi-classing to be too powerful, and you don't want everyone to feel like they have to. You want to support both. You want people to feel like they can play both and succeed in both, and I think that's true. Unless you're playing a DC caster, in which case, you don't multi-class.
Well, if you have a small guild and you only got a couple of players and you need somebody to multi-class, so you have a rogue in the party, you know, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But if you're in a 200-person guild, you know, and you never run with hirelings or anything like that, well, that's a completely different situation as well.
Young Fly in the chat is saying that the Wizard Necro capstone is his all-time favorite. He never takes anything else. Yeah. All right, let's close out the show, yeah?
Yeah.
So thanks for listening to the show. Thanks to Evilbeeker here. Do you want to plug anything before we close out?
No, just everybody have a safe holiday trip back to wherever you went to or came from for the holidays, and be careful as in the Midwest here. Be careful as the snow starts to fall, because that's coming soon.
Be careful, the snow starts to fall in the Northwest too.
Well, yeah, there is that.
You're probably better off to be in the Midwest because more people probably know how to drive in the snow, and we have big hills. So thanks to all the other contributors for DDOcast, and thanks to Sandy Stone Games, the Wizard of the Coast, and Cybers for hosting the podcast. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website, DDOcast.com, or you can support us on Patreon. We have a Patreon page. All that money supports prizes and stuff that I do when I do fun stuff like that. You can hit us up at DDOcast.com for show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, swag, and other fun stuff. If you'd like to be part of the show or have a comment on this episode, or a question you'd like to hear us answer, or something you'd like to hear us debate, or you just want to say hi, leave us a comment or email us at DDOcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media and follow us for the latest cast updates. I do want to say, kind of as a production note, you probably want to pay attention to that a little bit more in the coming this next month. There's a lot of holidays around. We're gotta figure out when I can do a 500th episode because that's coming up really soon. Hey, I should plan that. Note to self. And it's always a busy time of year for me as well. And Christmas is like right around a weekend, so there's some challenges in what that's going to be. So we're going to probably be missing a week here or there, and then with New Year's and all that stuff. So pay, just as a production note, keep an eye on social media and at DDOcast on Twitter is the best. We also have a Facebook page if you wanted to tune in live on when those shows are going to be. But the plan is to have, probably end this year with 500. So. But that's what's coming. Just wanted to make sure everyone's kind of aware of that. Our closing tip for the week comes from KuroQN on Argonesson. If you're new to the quest, don't run ahead of the group. You'll end up finding a trap. True. So may all your chat rolls be crits, all your chest level appropriate. Have fun, and don't forget to gather for buffs.